ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. Siddhanti told that the darkness is simply an absence of light. So Purvapakshi is holding on to his argument, his stand, that darkness is something positive. It is not simply absence of light. In support of his argument, he is in support of his stand, he is producing many arguments, and one by one those arguments are refuted by the Siddhanti. So next argument, tadetat anubhava apalapinam vacham. Siddhanti says what you are talking is only anubhava apalapi. You are denying, you are going against the very experience, because of prakasha samanyasya abhavaha tamaha. What we told is that the absence of light in general, okay, is darkness. Not any specific light, neither a specific light nor a specific amount of light. It is any amount, any kind of light and any degree of light. Just an absence of light in general is called darkness. Okay, now next sentence, yatra kutrachit, the same point Siddhanti clarifies, yatra kutrachit yasya kasyachidapi prakashasya sannidhane sati. Wherever there is whatever degree of light, whatever amount of light, tatra tamaso anupalabhyamanatvat, there the darkness cannot be seen. Wherever there is a light, even if a little, kena tarkena siddhet bhavatvan tamasaha. By what logic you can prove that the darkness is more than absence of light? It is something positive, something other than light, not simply absence of light. He means to say it is not no light, but it is non-light. Darkness is not simply no light. Darkness is something non-light, something other than light. Okay. Now, tadeva manda prakasha anuvrittir yatra asti tatraiva tamo anuvrittihi prakshalite kshanairapi nashakyate sakshat kartum. Now, therefore, evam, in this manner, manda prakasha, even if there is a dim light, a small little light, even in that place, anuvrittihi yatra asti, wherever there is a light, even in a small amount of light, there you cannot show the presence of darkness. Even if there is a little light, there you can't show. Even if you take a small spark, in that spark, and that point of the spark, you can't show the darkness. Because whatever is the amount of light, or a small lamp, candle lamp, or any other small flame, in that flame can you show the darkness? In the flame can you show the darkness? Whatever is the small degree of light, there you can't show the darkness. Therefore, where is the question of they coexisting? Light and darkness coexisting is impossible. This is what Siddhanti is telling. Prakshalita ikshanairapi. So you cannot see the presence of darkness where there is a light, even if it is a little light. Even when you look at it with your cleaned eyes, with your eyes cleaned with distilled water. Okay? Even with a distilled water, you clean your eyes. With such an eyes cleaned with a distilled water, you will not be able to see darkness there. It means you won't be able to see. Not at all possible. Just to say that Swamiji uses that expression. So, prakshalite kshanairapi. Okay, nashakyate sakshat kartumiti kutaha sankatha. When it doesn't exist, where is the question of light and darkness coexisting? Now the Purvapakshi says, Nachedam ashankaniyam. It is, the style of presenting is different. It is a Purvapakshi only, but Siddhanti is presenting in the name of Purvapakshi. You should not think like that. You should not suspect. You should not apprehend like this. You should not apprehend like this. Siddhanti says, but we can say it directly as a Purvapakshi's view only. We will put it as a Purvapakshi's view, and at the end we deny it, we reject it. Okay? Purvapakshi says that Yatra ghato asti tatraiva adhikarane yasya vastuno abhavaha vyaptya sambhavaha tasyapyanena nyayena ghata bhavatvam bhavatva vyafritya prasajyayatamiti. Purvapakshi says, Yatraiva ghato asti, where there is a, so here is a pot. Let us take an example, because it's a highly complicated thing. Highly complicated, therefore I split it into small sentences and then present it. It's a highly complicated idea. There is a pot. If I translate the sentence as it is a highly logical language, complicated sentence, so I split it into small sentences. So, yatra ghato asti, there is a pot. In the same place, tatraiva adhikarane, in the same place where there is a pot, yasya vastuno vyapta sambhavaha. Something, some other thing cannot exist. Okay? Where there is a pot, in the same place, and another object, another cannot exist. What is another? We have to discuss. We have to decide that. What cannot exist in the same place? Should that thing, what cannot exist in the same place where there is a pot, should it be only an absence? See, Purvapakshi asks, see, if there is a pot, in the same place where there is a pot, what cannot exist? Tell me. Basically, we say an absence of pot cannot exist. He says, why do you make a rule that an absence alone cannot exist? It is a Purvapakshi is talking. Ghato asti tatraiva adhikarane yasya vastuno vyaptya sambhavaha. Something which cannot exist. That also, according to, if you go by your law, if you go by Siddhanti's law means the rule Siddhanti made. If you go by Siddhanti's rule, ghata bhavatvam bhavatva vyavrittischa. What cannot exist in the same place where there is a pot? What cannot exist, I repeat, it is a logical language. Because it is a speculative arguments only. It's not anubhava. What cannot exist in a place where there is a pot? Here is a pot. In the same place, what cannot exist? Purvapakshi says, you are telling like this which is undesirable. Purvapakshi is accusing Siddhanti. If we go by your Siddhanti's role, it amounts to mean, it implies that only an absence cannot exist. If there is a pot, absence of pot cannot exist. That means you are taking absence alone is the opposite to pot. And bhavatva and absence alone and no other positive object. No other object. Why? Purvapakshi says, when there is something pot is existing, of course we accept it is a absence of pot cannot exist, but some other object also cannot exist. Some other object. What is some other object? Like, if not pot, cloth let us take, or a book let us take. Book also cannot exist in the same place where there is a pot. That means the opposite to pot need not be only absence of pot. opposite to pot can mean non-pot also. This is what Purvapakshi says. Purvapakshi says opposite to pot need not mean simply an absence of pot, but it can mean opposite to pot a non-pot also. Therefore, where there is a pot, in the same place, either an absence of pot can't be, no pot cannot be, non-pot also cannot be. Therefore, why do you take only absence alone? Why not you take other? If you go by your Siddhanti's logic, it means that only absence of pot cannot exist. Okay? But another pot also means absence of pot. See this, Purvapakshi is unable to understand. Some another object also means absence of pot only. To this Siddhanti, another object means absence only, because another object is other than pot. It means absence only. Pot is not absent. Pot is absent is clear. Absence of pot can mean simple absence of pot, or it can mean some other object. But some other object is not necessary. Siddhanti answers that another object, it is not necessary that when a pot is broken, let us say, what is an absence of pot? When you break a pot, what happens? An absence of pot comes. When you break a pot, does only absence of pot come, or there is a non-pot also can come? Not necessary. Not necessary. For in order to get absence of pot, if you simply break the pot, it is enough. You don't have to bring the non-pot. You don't have to bring the non-pot to get an absence of pot. Once pot is broken, absence of pot follows. You may bring in another object, that is an additional. You may bring in another object is an additional thing, but that's not a necessary point. So, breaking of pot is an absence of pot. So, absence of pot is generally opposite to pot. But in addition to absence of pot, you may bring in another object. Another object is an additional substance. But in the addition, another object, there is an absence of pot is definitely there. If you bring in another object, let there be another object, but the absence of pot is definitely there. Therefore, absence of pot alone is primary. Siddhanti says, absence of pot alone is primary. Siddhanti's answer, let us see. I just answered on my behalf. So that would be, Purvapakshi says, that would be prasajyayatam. That prasakti comes. Prasakti means some undesirable conclusion, unacceptable condition. Undesirable or unacceptable condition would follow. What is that? What cannot exist in a place where there is a pot? Should it be only absence and not any non-object? Another object? How can you say that? Siddhanti says you can't say that. You don't have to apprehend that. You don't have to apprehend it, because yatra prakasha samanya adarshanam. He is also going round and round logical language. But we have to put up with a few pages with this unnecessary logical language. Yatra prakasha samanya adarshanam. Where there is no light in general. Where there is no light in general, tatra niyamena tamaso darshanam yata. Where there is no light in general, there you find generally darkness only. Wherever there is no light, you find darkness as a rule. As a rule. Wherever there is no light, you find darkness as a rule. But similarly, Similar to that, you won't find Tatha Ukta Drishtante. Let us take your illustration. Ghata Samanya Abhavasthale. In the general absence of a pot. In the general absence of a pot, do you find any another object? In a general absence of pot, you find only absence of pot only. Do you find some another object? Don't find it. In any general absence of pot, we find simply absence of pot only. You may find rarely in a given case where there is no pot, some other object is also present, but that is an additional thing. In an absence of pot, absence alone is there is a general rule. But bringing another object is an additional thing. Therefore, where there is no light, you find simply absence of light. Similarly, in your example of pot, where there is an absence of pot, there is only an absence of pot. Do you find another object necessarily? Do you say that in each time there is an absence of pot? Absence of pot means only non-pot should be present. Does it mean that all absence of pot necessarily mean non-pot? You can't say. Do you say every absence of pot means wherever there is no pot, necessarily some non-pot should be present? Not necessary. Non-pot should be present, that is not necessary. Absence of pot means simply absence of pot. For absence of pot, you have to simply break a pot. You break a pot and you find an absence of pot. See, to get an absence of pot, is breaking of pot enough? By breaking of pot, you find an absence of pot. Do you find it or you don't find it? Or breaking of pot necessarily means a non-pot should be present. Some other object other than pot must be present. That means when you want to break a pot, in order to get an absence of pot, is breaking of pot alone is enough? Or you have to bring a non-pot also? So, you have to bring a non-pot also? Means some other object other than pot? Then only it can be called an absence of pot. Does absence of pot mean necessarily presence of some other object? Does absence of pot mean necessarily presence of some other object? Non-pot. If you want to break a pot, will it not break unless you bring some other object? That means, should pot be replaced by another object? Or if you simply break the pot followed by, not replaced by anything else, just simply absence of pot. Can there be not absence of pot by breaking a pot? You break a pot and there is an absence of pot, simply. So, the absence of pot need not mean another object, okay? A non-pot. So, that is an additional thing. Bringing another object, replacing it by another object is an additional thing. When you remove a pot, what follows is simply an absence of pot. That absence of pot you may fill with another object. That's a different issue, okay? When you remove a pot, an absence of pot follows. That to fill the absence of pot, you may bring another object. That's an additional point. But absence of pot is simply an absence of pot. Absence of pot doesn't necessarily mean another object. A non-pot, a pot other than pot. Absence of pot simply means absence of pot. Absence of pot doesn't mean necessarily an object other than pot. This is what Siddhanta is trying to say. Absence of pot doesn't necessarily mean an another object other than pot. An object other than pot. Absence of pot, does it mean necessarily an another object? Not necessary. Absence of pot means simply remove the pot, there is an absence. Do you necessarily bring an another object? Then only we call it as an absence of pot. Absence of pot means now can we say like this? Absence of pot means presence of some other object other than pot. It must be present. Do we say that? Not necessary. Absence of pot need not mean presence of some other thing. Necessary. Not necessary. Absence of pot means simply remove the pot. If absence of pot is simply removing a pot, you can remove the pot and the absence of pot follows. But if absence of pot were to mean, if absence of pot were to mean necessarily an another object, you can't remove a pot at all. You can't remove the pot at all, because removing a pot means a substitute. Without a substitute, pot cannot be removed. That would be the undesirable situation. Do you feel that pot cannot be removed unless it is replaced by something else? Pot cannot be removed at all unless replaced by something else. Do you need necessarily a replacement to remove the pot? To remove the pot, do you need necessarily a replacement? Purvapakshi talks like that. Do you need necessarily a replacement of the pot? Can't we remove simply the pot and simply an absence of pot follows? Can simply an absence of pot follow by removal of pot? Do you necessarily replace it? Do you necessarily have a replacement? Purvapakshi says no. A pot is removed, it is replaced by something else. Every removal of pot, every absence of pot necessarily requires a replacement. So similarly he says absence of light means a replacement of a light. Something an opposite object. Something another apart from light, something in a non-light should be present. Simply absence of light can't be. Simply absence of light can't be. The absence of light necessarily means non-light, and another object other than light. See, this is Purvapakshi's argument. Non-light must be present. Simply absence of light can't be accepted. No light means, what does no light mean? No light means simply absence of light, or bringing a substitute of light, or bringing something, another object in place of light. Another object can't be. No light means simply absence of light. That is simple and straight in everybody's experience. Why do you say absence of light necessarily means bringing another object? No, such thing we don't find in, you may bring it, but that's an additional thing. But basically when you remove the light, what follows is an absence of light. When you remove the light, it is not a replacement by another object. Purvapakshi says that the absence of light is not simply absence of light. Darkness is not absence of light, it is something positive. And another object, positive means some other object, he says. Absence of light means another object. Siddhanti says absence of light means simply absence of light. It doesn't imply presence of another object. Purvapakshi says absence of light, darkness means not simply absence of light, it is a presence of another object, a black substance. This is unnecessary, wild imagination. It is against experience. Siddhanti says it is against experience. Therefore, it is wrong. Okay? We should just go by Anubhava. Prakasha samanya adarshanam tatra niyamena tamaso darshanam yatha तथा उक्त दृष्टान्ते घट सामान्य भावस्थले तादृशवस्त्व प्रतीते. It's a highly technical language Swamiji used. I have to break them into 5 sentences, 4-5 sentences and put it in a simple language. Therefore, ultimately, Swamiji's conclusion is Tasmat Prakasha Abhavaha Eva Tamaha. Prakasha Abhavaha Eva Tamaha. Therefore, absence of light alone is darkness. Darkness means only absence of light, not presence of another substance called black substance called darkness. Darkness is not another substance additional to absence of light. As Purvapakshi told, there is no additional substance. Anywhere when there is a light is removed, only simple there is an absence of light. When the light is removed, there is only simple absence of light. It is not necessarily presence of another object. Any absence you take it. Absence of pot means simply absence of pot. It doesn't mean presence of another object. It doesn't mean presence of its replacement. You don't need replacement. You don't need an alternative object. To remove, on removal of pot, removing pot doesn't necessarily means presence of an alternative object. Absence of pot doesn't necessarily mean presence of an alternative object. Alternative object may be present in a given case, that is an additional thing. Once the pot is removed, there is simply bare absence of pot, and you may bring in another object, that's an additional thing. But what necessarily follows when you remove a pot is simply absence of pot. Similarly, what follows when you remove the light is a simply absence of light. What follows simply when you remove a light is an absence of light. Okay? This should be a simple explanation. As I already told you in my previous class, it is going to be a very complicated issue. So therefore, I didn't touch it in the last class. I postponed it to today's class. So today, this one argument is important. Purvapakshi again and again takes that removal of light doesn't mean simply absence of light. Removal of light implies substitution. Some other object must be present. An alternative object must be present. That's why darkness is an alternative substance. It is not. Darkness is an alternative substance. It is not simply an absence. It is an alternative substance. But it is a wild imagination. It is against Anubhava. It is a common man's Anubhava. Any person without knowing philosophy simply ask a common man, simply says there is no light. It's a darkness, that's all. But darkness may appear to have a color and it is moving. All that is only a mistake. It is an illusion. Mistake means it is an illusion. It looks like black, but blackness, to see a color, light is necessarily required. To see color, light is required. Without light, no color can be seen. If there is a black color, then you need necessarily light. Without light, you can't see the color. And the same light is moving. If you take a candle and you are walking, you see the darkness in front is walking behind you. You hold a candle and walk, slowly you walk. As your light is moving, the darkness in front is coming by your side, moving from your side and coming to your back. Darkness is moving to your back as your light is moving to the front. Seeing this, some people say light is moving. Light is not moving. Light is moving. Darkness is not moving, because darkness is not a substance at all. Where is the question of darkness moving? When the light is moving, it appears that darkness is moving. Darkness doesn't move, because darkness is not a substance at all. It is simply absence of light. When the light is moving, it appears that darkness in front of you is moving from your side and going towards your back. Going towards your back. Then you turn to your back, it looks that the darkness is turning towards your back, going towards your back, and light is coming to your front. So darkness moving is an illusion. Darkness has a color is also illusion, because color requires necessarily light. Without light, no color can be perceived. Therefore, with this simple common sense logic, we can say light is simply darkness. Okay? This is a highly complicated issue. Therefore, we go slowly, one class by another class. Next argument is also another complicated only, because these are all unnecessarily wild imaginations. Next point, he says, there is an opposition between darkness and light. What is the nature of opposition? Tamasaha alo. He says, since there is an opposition, it must be another substance. See, he is taking another argument. There is an opposition between light and darkness. Yes, there is an opposition. Siddhanti says the opposition between light and darkness is because light is a presence, darkness is an absence of it. Light is a presence and darkness is an absence of it. Therefore, the opposition between light and darkness is that one is presence, another is an absence. Presence and absence are opposite to each other. This is Siddhanti's stand. Purvapakshi says no. Since there is an opposition, the darkness must be another substance other than light. Now he says there is an opposition. What does that opposition prove? Opposition is there between light and darkness. So does this opposition prove the nature of darkness as what? As something positive? As something substance? What does it prove? It is opposition, no doubt, we accept it. But does the opposition has anything to prove about the nature of darkness? As something positive, something substantial? This is the topic we have to discuss. So it's a totally different topic. I think we'll discuss in the next class. Okay? Now, tamasaha aloka viroditvat aloka abhava vyanjaniyatvam. Abba. He says, it's all complicated, it's a boring, unnecessarily wild imagination. We will see in the next class only. Until then, you contemplate today's topic. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.